to Dark Souls. We are, getting close here. I can't remember where I left you last time. I should have reviewed the footage to make this link up, but I've been traveling around a bit in my spare time here, trying to pick up a few of the more out-of-the-way items and things that I missed on my way through the catacombs and the Tomb of the Giants and the Crystal Cave and all of that good stuff. Quite a bit that I missed. Nothing hugely important to know about. There was an ember or two, which I've delivered on to the relevant blacksmith. And the only other thing that may be of interest is I ran into Big Hat Logan, our sorcerer friend, back in the Duke's archives there. And, regrettably, he had gone mad, it seems, and no longer remembered me. So I do actually have Big Hat Logan's set. But I am shamed to possess it. I'm trying to think if there's anything else big you missed. The only other thing that I remembered, or had my memory jogged on, from many, many years ago, is that there is a boss in Darkroot Garden that I, for whatever reason, had thought was optional. I dearly, dearly hoped in my heart of hearts that it would be optional, and it apparently is not. Apparently the last Lord Soul we require is held by the Four Kings, the rulers of the sunken city of New Londo, or what once was, now the New Londo ruins. And in order to descend into the abyss where they now make their home, I require a item that gives me the right of abyss walking. Otherwise, it's instant death, an instant death sentence to enter the abyss as a mortal person. Just trying to get rid of the bushes. Oh, I didn't get that item, but it was likely moss. So, in order to possess the right of abyss walking, we need a ring that once belonged to the great hero Artorias, who we are in the process of visiting. We do have that boss battle open to us as well. It's many hundreds of years have passed since Artorias was a hero of note, and you can go several hundred years into the past in a specific area in order to meet him and finish his quest effectively. So there are two ways you can do this. You can either do this boss in the present first, and it doesn't particularly matter either way, it has to be done, which weighs very heavily on my heart. Or you can also complete his quest line in the past, and then it changes the cutscene slightly. There is a friend of Artorias that I regret we have to fight. And if you have been through the battle in the past already, he recognizes you during this fight from many hundreds of years ago, which I think is just even more devastating. So I'm going to try to go ahead and just get it out of the way, kind of pretend it's not happening, if I'm being honest with you. Sink to this bonfire. And then we can move on. Regrettably, this is a morning of difficult choices and difficult actions, but we will persevere. In the name of knowledge, or something like that. Ah, thanks, little hill. I have not tried fighting a agile human with my Zweihanda just yet. It's still fairly effective, but parrying and blocking are right out the window. Good morning. Happy Friday to you. And thank you for joining me. I hope there is freedom and fun in your respective weekends. Of some variety. I need to get better at timing this against humans, it seems. There we go. It is interesting, the group of people that seem to comprise this covenant, the Hunter's Covenant, the purpose of which I believe is to assist the boss we're heading towards now in protecting the grave of Artorias, if I'm remembering correctly. So it's interesting that there's like a, an Eastern barbarian weapons expert. There's a sorcerer who appears to be from Vinheim. There's a priest who may be from Thorland or somewhere like that. Like people from all over have banded together. It's not one group of specific people. I think that's kind of interesting or lovely, depending on how you look at it.
Is it not so?
Oh, hello.
You? Thou fared well to find me, but cometh thee not for the grave of Sir Artorias? My advice true. Forget this. The legend of Artorias art none but a fabrication. Traversing the dark. 'Tis but a fairy tale. Have thine own respect. Go not yonder knocking for nothing, I say.
Have thine own respect. This is a very wise decision. I appreciate the advice. You are correct. There is nothing I can do about it. I regret to inform you. A result most heathenish and
There's
gross.
nothing more to say about this tedious reckoning. Begone from here, pernicious caitiff.
I completely understand.
Begone.
That is fair. I likely should have said yes, and then she likely would have offered me to join the hunters, the protectors of the grave, which would have given me an achievement, even if I had said no, which is what I should have done, to get said achievement. But I said no, trying to be honest, and oh well. Now we don't get the 20G. Oh, lovely. The armor of the stone guardians we see lying around here, which I have to assume are like upgraded versions or the next iteration of those hammer-wielding gentlemen in the past in this same area. You may recognize if you've seen some sessions prior where I was in the Royal Wood, headed towards Artorias. This section, this canyon, down at the canyon floor there is where you go to fight Calamite, which we have not done yet, the dragon battle. And these are those, towers built on opposing sides of the canyon where there was not a bridge at that time. Hundreds of years ago, there is not yet a bridge. But there was, under the water there, a passage, a magical elevator that would take you to a building that I have to imagine used to be right about there, but is no longer. That would lead on to Ulasil proper, the township of Ulasil. So this is very, very likely, at least. It is a refreshed or recycled area, but it is very likely intentionally recycled to imply that this is the location where Ulasil once existed, before it was destroyed, I believe. So this is actually the pathway into the sanctuary garden where you come out into the Royal Wood. It is changed slightly. There isn't a way down over on this side anymore. You have to go around. And the Sanctuary Garden seems to be where our dear friend, the great wolf, Sif, has made his home, where he permanently protects the items of his master, Sir Artorias, who is a knight of Gwyn, one of 4. Hello, and welcome. Welcome, Lupus, and my apologies for the timing. This is not my favorite fight. If you may have missed my introduction, let me briefly say again how deeply I wanted to avoid this. I thought that this may have been an optional boss battle, and regrettably in my research I have found out that it is not, and I'm devastated. But we'll try to get through it very, very quickly, knowing that it weighs heavily on my heart, and that I'm sorry for everything that's about to happen. So the Sanctuary Garden has long since faded away. It has become a battlefield, as various adventurers have heard this legend of Artorias, the Abyss Walker, and they have come seeking his path, his glory, the right of abyss walking. And none of them, as you may have noticed by the amount of weapons and corpses scattered about, none of them have succeeded. And I'm sure we're about to find out why. Absolutely beautiful. So he is not taking pleasure in this. The great wolf Sif does not want to be here, much as I don't. He is trying to protect you from what happened to his master. That is his only wish. He does not want to hurt you otherwise. He is just afraid that you too will die. I really should have kindled one of those bonfires, perhaps. I've gotten used to now having more Estus than 5. But we'll see how it goes. Ooh. I am so sorry, my friend. I am so desperately sorry. Victory. Pfft. Victory achieved, my ass. Okay. Thank you for bearing with me there. That's my least favorite part of this game. Oh no, please root for Sif. I completely am on your side. I am a monster that is filled with crimson shame. But that is it. It's over. My apologies, Sif. I will hold the ring. I swear. I will let no one else die. Okay. So now when we return to the New Londo ruins, when we attempt to face the Abyss once more, we will have the art of abyss walking to descend into the darkest part of the city. I'm trying to think if there's anything else we should look at before then, or if that should be our next destination. I've angered a mushroom family. Or maybe their footsteps are just aggressive sounding all the time. Appears to be a chest in the middle of the lake. I've already ruined enough lives today, I'm sure. Shattered enough families. And yet, my curiosity persists. Enchanted ember. Oh, okay. I'm sorry I stole from you, but I will leave you in peace now. This is my vow. My apologies, and thank you for this ember, which I will take to the blacksmith in the New Londo ruins. It's fascinating to me, or impressive to me, how all of the items have a specific placement, and the placement is important in the story. The enchanted ember there, tying back into the New Londo ruins as if to give you a hint. This is all just sort of hidden in item descriptions and very, very light amounts of dialogue. But you can kind of tell as you go through what became of Artorias and where you need to go to follow his path. Even though they're not very good at telling you directly. Oh no, I missed a message there. Can I redeem myself by killing some mushroom children as a sacrifice to the moon for my great wolf grievance? That would likely be good for me and my spirit, or whatever it is I possess. And we also have a mystical musical madness. Early in the morning, killing wolves that we don't want to kill, and mushroom children that we do, because they punched us that one time, and we're holding a grudge against all of the fun guy. That was terrible, but it exists now. That's the great shame of it. It now exists. Ooh. That was close. He almost hugged me. Almost got hugged. Okay, I don't need to be doing this. I should just warp. I'm just having too much fun singing about mushroom grudgery in my mushroom drudgery. So let us away here briefly to New Londo. But since I'm oddly wordy this morning, and I'm not even sure why. It's all just coalescing into a clear picture all of a sudden. Let me run briefly to Anor Londo to get some more thoughts out of my head that you don't need to know about and have not asked about. And here we are. Anor Londo we've briefly touched on in the past as being an illusion. It is not as sunny as it appears to be. This is sort of how the city would have appeared, I must assume, during the height of the Age of Fire, or the Age of Light, it might be called, but is not its present state. Let me see if I can just get down to the throne room. In fact, the bridge is up from this side. I picked the wrong bonfire here. Something kind of cool about this first section. You may remember we had that summoned NPC who helped us in 2 battles. His name was Iron Tarkus. He helped us first beyond the wall here at Sen's Fortress. there's an iron golem protecting the wall, the passage into Anor Londo, and then you can actually see as you get closer that it's fully demolished. There is no way into Anor Londo. After we beat the iron golem, the gargoyles came down and picked us up, and they brought us over the wall here to get into the city. But in the story, in the canonical timeline of things, there is no way into the city. The gargoyles are just trying to kind of spread chaos and allow the undead in regardless, but they have completely given up on the plan. Like, you're supposed to be able to get into Anor Londo if you can pass the trial of Sen's fortress. It is a puzzle, a trap box, a saw-type obstacle to get through, and if you're worthy of getting through it, you should be allowed into Anor Londo directly. But even that they have stopped allowing. They demolished the passage. And undead are only getting in through this accident of gargoylery. And Black Iron Tarkus is only summonable at a boss fire. NPCs are only summonable if in their timeline, in their past, they fought that beast and won, essentially. So, like, Iron Tarkus fought the Iron Golem, and he made it past, the gargoyles brought him in, or perhaps he came in back when the door was still open, I'm not sure. But when he got this far, he found, as you might, your first time through, that the bridge is up, the bridge is not passable down there. The mechanism starts in a position that will never allow you across, and we actually had to cross those rafters and break in. I'm not sure if we could even see it from here. Let me see if I have binoculars. Binoculars. Little bit hard to see from here. Not even sure if it technically renders until you get close. But we walked up that rafter and we found one of the windows of the painting room there broken. And that's how we got in. It is very likely that Iron Tarkus broke it. He broke the window to allow himself to get farther in. And then, later when we fought Ornstein and Smog there, the two guardians of the princess, he helped us there as well. So it seems like he may have gotten a little bit further in. But then we found his armor on the rafters, or under the rafters of the painted world. Like maybe he tried to climb back out and he fell, and the painting guardians just kind of dragged him into a corner there. And none of that you would really know. You especially wouldn't know it the first time through. It's just kind of an interesting little story of our friend there, since he was so helpful during those two boss battles. So all I'm doing here, sorry for the ramble, all I'm doing here is switching the bonfire across to the other side of the bridge, teleporting my way over so that I don't have to mess with the mechanism. It's already in the position I need it, so I have gone back and done a little research to refresh my memory on the sequence of things. This is certainly an illusion. This lady no longer lives here. Guinevere, the son of Gwyn, or daughter, pardon me, daughter of the Lord Gwyn, decided to leave with another god long time ago. And that is now an illusion that is maintained by the youngest child of Gwyn, Gwyndolin. This is what I wanted to do. I wanted to get down here to look at the statues. I couldn't even remember why I was in here. There's statues of everybody down here, which is probably the easiest way to see them. So Lord Gwyn, the Lord of Light, is the final boss of this game. The goal of all of this, we're trying to now get the Lord's souls in order to meet him in combat. And I'm not sure how deeply we need to get into that. It's kind of like learning an entire new set of laws of nature, and beginning from the very scratch. which we could certainly do. But that's going to be a long session. But effectively, if you remember the opening cutscene at all, my audio levels were quite poor back then. I'm not sure if anyone actually heard the opening cutscene, but I'm sure it's available on YouTube and other forms. One of the things they say is that before any of this, like in the age of ancients, the primeval age long before, only dragons existed. Dragons were immortal, and they were made out of stone, and they just sort of were a natural feature of a featureless world, a world of gray that was both light and dark commingled into nothingness. And one day, as a natural event, or as because of some circumstance, no one's quite sure, fire sprang out into the darkness, into the grayness, and the fire separated everything. The fire created light and dark, light and shadow. It created heat, and therefore cold, which did not exist before the existence of heat. And then it created physical existence. Things could suddenly be seen when fire sprang to life. And the things that could suddenly be seen were both giants, things that looked sort of similar to the guards out here, say. I raced to the wrong end of the room. So there were giants, and then there were pygmies, which are just humans, normal-sized humans from my perspective. And so the actual ruling class that lived here, the lords, were likely giants that sprang into existence when the fire did, and not necessarily gods. They are not necessarily any less physical creatures than we lowly humans, but they decided to install themselves as gods, and they were able to do so by using the power that they found within the flame, these Lord Souls. Part of the disparity of the creation of flame, the heat and cold, the light and dark, suddenly coming into existence, seems to have had a ripple effect and created other disparities, such as life and death. Even though it was not such a physical separation, it also sprang into existence at that time. And so I believe the idea of it is that darkness is not really as we understand it in human terms, in the Dark Souls world. Darkness seems to be what humanity is. The natural state of humanity is chaotic and dark and emotional. You can have anger, and you can have love, and you can be enraged. And that wasn't possible before the darkness of humanity kind of sprang into being. But because we're supposed to be this thing, this sort of spirit that exists in nothingness, we're not supposed to be seen, necessarily. We had to kind of shackle ourselves to these bodies. The darkness that exists in the giants and the humans that were created is trapped there. It is in a prison, a physical prison. And like you can see, these humanity items are effectively a released version of that. It's humanity outside of the prison in its natural state. It is a form of darkness that exists as flame, almost. And so effectively, all of us here, our human bodies, are consumed with this flame of darkness, and it kind of integrates or can be fuel for real flame, this kind of flame, which seems to be more of a temporary construct or an accident in the world, like the flame of humanity is the real soul energy, but there's this physical version of it now, a physical energy that exists as flame in this world. And so you can, say, kindle a bonfire by offering humanity because it burns for several hundred years in this state. It's like a weird, accidental, temporary chemical reaction that was set off. So effectively what they're asking you to do is fill your body with the soul energy of everyone left alive in the kingdom. Is kind of why you're going around killing everybody. Your soul is capable of handling and holding all of that energy only if you are a strong enough will to have persevered this far. That's why they make everything so difficult. That's why there are entire kingdoms made out of traps and snake men to stop you, because it can't be just anybody. It can't be some dinky soul trying to link the fire. It needs to go for thousands of years, if possible. And so the current Lord of Light sacrificed himself at some point in the past to keep this physical flame alive, this orange flame. And he is beneath Firelink Shrine, even now, burning eternally until someone comes to take his place, effectively. And what that means for you as a character is that if you decide to take his place, you will burn for eternity. You will be alive and sentient and aware, and you will burn in sacrifice. But the tricky thing about it is that what are you doing it for? The physical flame exists only as a temporary accident. It was a response to the age of ancients and the nothingness that existed there. It was never supposed to be the natural state of things. So by linking the flame, by continuing the cycle of physicality, effectively, what are you really doing for the world? This will happen again. The flame will fade again. There is no way to avoid it. The world will return to darkness eventually, and when it returns to darkness, it means we will all be whole again. We will be released from physicality, and we will once again be part of humanity, the single dark flame of humanity that we were always supposed to be, which I think is just very, very fascinating. So there's my long ramble about the origins of the world here. My apologies. Really hoping to be able to spend some of these souls. I see we have a redemption of Nam Nams for some German as well. We will try to slip this in as we are able. As we are able to slip in some German in this history lesson. So I don't know if it's really worth trying to spend those souls. I don't necessarily need them. But I am kind of thinking about pursuing this path of darkness, which is why I'm here at the Dark Moon Tomb, where Gwyndolin watches over his father's symbols and his kingdom, and maintains the illusion. I am certainly not ready to fight Gwyndolin, is my thought, but let's try it. Let's try it with almost 50,000 souls in my pocket. This is going to be great.
What foolishness! Why trespasseth upon the great Lord's tomb, whilst thou art a disciple of the Dark Sun? Mark the words of mine self, Gwyndolin. Thou shalt not go unpunished.
Well, that is likely fair. I am trespassing and should be punished. Okay. Drawing me further into your illusions, I see. So this is the youngest child of Gwyn, and the last remaining deity in Anor Londo. Guinevere is an illusion. Gwyn is beneath Firelink, a hollow shell of his former self. He is the only remaining child of giants, and therefore the only remaining symbol of godhood in Anor Londo. This is a bit rough with the amount of ranged attacks he has at his disposal. Okay. Still going. A little more of that in. I believe that, you might see those, like, tentacles or whatever coming out. I don't know if that was always the case or if he had some sort of accident. I know that, there was something weird about his birth. Like, women of the kingdom are supposed to be able to do this specific kind of lunar magic, moon magic. And when he was born, he was able to do it. But it was seen as like some sort of accident or problem that he could do it. But there's some indication that he was raised as a woman so that he could learn that moon magic, which is very visually impressive and amazing. And also hurts quite a bit. I just can't catch it in time. So sorry. We're getting there. If only I hadn't hit that, I would have gotten it. Oh, sweet. I did get a hit in. So I believe when we defeat him, all of the illusions of Anor Londo will cease. Is the idea. If we defeat him. That was close. So let's try that one more time. That was relatively successful. So one of the illusions is obviously Guinevere, but another illusion is just the sunlight itself in the city, which is what I'm most curious about. I don't think I've ever actually pursued this path. And I'm interested to see what Anor Londo actually looks like. The truth of it. That is what we are pursuing here. I deeply regret the violence. I would love to keep this, fantastic sorcerer alive. Oh, jeez. Okay. Well, there went my 50,000. I would love to keep him alive, but I am interested and curious about the truth. So it may already be too late for a certain aspect of this. I have already spoken with the primordial serpent Frampt, who appears in Firelink after you ring the bells of awakening. There is another path you can take, which I have been less than aware of.
What foolishness.
And so it may be too late for that path, but we can at least try to reveal some of the truths of Anor Londo here, is my thought. It's that one that can go through things that keeps getting me. Ah, so close. Oh, how I wish. Yikes. That was silly. Alright. So all of those little ones home on me, then the big one doesn't home, but is always like where I'm trying to avoid him. Okay. Small progress. Ah. And taken away. Oh, that would be even more sad. Hollywood Crown in the chat is saying, it is also said that Guinevere is and always has been an illusion. That Gwyndolin was the only child of Gwyn, but that he was embarrassed of him, wanted him to be a daughter. And so Gwyndolin went into hiding and made the illusion of a beautiful sister to please the kingdom. That is even more devastating. Alright, come on. We just need like a third swing, really, is all. So close. And yet not at all. That's it. Get distracted using your bow. That's the way. There's absolutely nothing in my soul pile. Not a scrap of humanity to be found. There we go.
Oh,
My apologies, Gwendolyn.
swathed in dark, an eternal curse upon thee.
So obviously in the reality of the game... So sorry, making sure there's not more text. In the reality of the game, these people are gods. You know, this may as well be Mount Olympus. And there are whole sects of humans, whole kingdoms of humans that follow them as if they are gods. And I have just committed one of the greatest heresies of all time in breaking in and killing one of them. So this must be the tomb that he's guarding, the tomb of Gwyn, if I understand it correctly. But Gwyn is beneath Firelink at the same time, so I'm not sure if that's just like a hollow version of him, or you fight his spirit later and his actual body is interred here. I'm not sure what the purpose of this tomb is, or if it's just a sort of symbolic tomb. I'm not sure. So the entire, apparently, if I'm remembering correctly, the entire concept of miracles is sort of tied to that first flame, the physical flame. That, the dragons in the Age of Ancients were immortal, and when Gwyn first came out, one of the first giants revealed by the first flame, he found the soul of light within it. And with that soul, he was able to light physical fires, and he was able to create lightning for himself. He could shoot lightning bolts. And they decided this kind of happened. The first fire happened deep underground, somewhere in the core of the earth. Some tectonic friction sparked and sprang it to life. And the giants and the humans were revealed inside, popping out of the ground. I forget what track I was on, so sorry. Let me gather my thoughts with a sip of coffee here, one moment. Oh, that's better. A little caffeine in the brain. So, they sprang up from the ground, if I remember correctly, deep below, and they wanted to take the surface world. The surface was where all of these ancient trees were that were usable. They could be burned for fuel. And then the dragons were a threat and a challenge to their new power. The dragons, having existed forever, immortally, had no idea what to make of all of this, I'm sure. And were like, huh? But there was one dragon, who we have actually met before, who was born different from the others. Much to his dismay, he was born without the stone layer, the stone scales that make them immortal. Apparently underneath they are mortal creatures, but their stone exoskeleton allowed them to live forever. They were effectively never exposed to the air and thus kept fresh. However, Seethe, the Scaleless, was born without this, and he was exposed like a nerve, to borrow some bannerisms. And he hated this, and he hated his brethren for their immortality. And so when the Age of Fire began, and this may have been around the same time, Seethe may have been born, as part of the universal plan, when the fire sprang into being. So Seethe saw the giants, the lords, coming out of the ground with their newfound power, and he knew that they couldn't defeat the dragons unless they had the power of lightning, the sorcery of lightning, which dragons already possessed, apparently. So he whispered it to Gwyn. He whispered the creation of lightning to Gwyn, in order that Gwyn might exact revenge upon his brothers and sisters. And so you can see in Anor Londo there's like a room full of dragon heads on the wall, and the knight of Gwyn that protects the princess's chamber is Ornstein, the Dragon Slayer, one of the original knights of Gwyn who tore across the surface world, killing every dragon they could find, except for Seethe, of course, who for his betrayal was gifted a dukedom. And he was gifted this plot of land, and he was allowed to build an arcane laboratory and research facility where he studied how to become immortal himself. And as part of his betrayal of the dragons, he also stole the primordial crystal, which is that thing that during the boss battle we had to run and smash before we could even damage him. That was his answer to immortality. He took a dragon artifact and bound his soul to it so that his wounds would heal and close. So by taking out Seethe, we have ended a 1,000-year-old betrayal of the dragons. And once the dragons were removed from the surface world, the Age of Light began. The Age of Fire took over, effectively. So that is why there is this massive dukedom up here, and Seethe himself was the duke in question. I couldn't recall back when we were looking at it. So I do believe now that we have killed Gwyndolin, all residents, any resident of Anor Londo who was not previously hostile, will now be hostile. And regrettably, this includes the Firekeeper. She is a servant of the gods, and is not pleased with what you've done.
How? This man.
I take no pleasure in that. She is innocent in all of this, despite her beliefs. And that will, regrettably, kill this bonfire. All bonfires require a firekeeper, whose soul is linked inexorably to it. Whose soul and fate. So let me see here. Maybe it still requires... that's a shame. I was just gonna say maybe it still requires that we remove the illusion of the princess. Like maybe that's what's keeping the sky lit, even though Gwyndolin is dead. Or maybe I'm just misremembering. But now I cannot warp out from this bonfire is the problem. I think it might actually be quicker to go this way, as strange as it seems. I also have plenty of homeward bones, but I'm not sure if that would just take me... I think it would take me back to the Duke's archives. Let me try it. So sorry. I am rambling too much to pay attention to what I'm doing here. So much rambling. I just want to get back into the chamber of the princess and see if she's still there. Or if I'm misremembering about the illusion of sunlight. It looks like she's still there. It's very hard not to feel when you go through this. It's hard not to feel as though you're terribly damaging the world when this happens. You're ruining hundreds of thousands of people's faith. You're destroying the only source of hope left in the world, the only source of sunlight. The only place that gives people any sort of hope is Anor Londo, and to destroy it seems terrible. But then, once you get further and further into things, you realize that there's no purpose to this, that it's all just temporary and fleeting, and that it's a deception, whether or not it's good or bad. So I am not sure if there is an easier way to do this. Let me just switch off to a ranged thing. And so I cannot tell you, I wish I could tell you if this was like a morally good or bad choice. I don't think it matters. I don't think there is such a thing. Every choice you make is both good and bad. It is both light and dark. It is life and death. We are one single dark flame of humanity. So this is the true Anor Londo. This is how bad it's actually become. How close to fading the fire is. And it feels worse. It feels so much worse to know this. But is it better? Because this is true. So I'm just curious what everything looks like out here with like the painted guardian room and all of that now appears. So we had this glittering, beautiful sky full of sun rays, full of literal god rays. And now it just looks like everywhere else. The sun is still there, but it is so weak and distant and cold. And all of Anor Londo now seems asleep. And once again, I don't think I've made the right choice. I don't think such a thing exists. Let's see what the painting room looks like, just out of curiosity. Sinister and lovely. This painting, by the way, it seems to be this whole room and the painting in it and why there are guardians. It seems to be a sort of vault for things that would damage or hinder the god's reputation in any way. So it contains heresies and miracles of other gods, of what they consider to be false gods. And then it contains, you know, what they call the crossbreed Priscilla, though I find that distasteful. the dragon lady in there that was not supposed to exist. And no one is quite sure if Seethe is supposed to be her father, like who that dragon Priscilla's father might be. So anyway, I need to regrettably run off and begin my work day. This has been a Friday of darkness. We have gotten a lot of difficult decisions out of the way here early on. So next time we will need to continue... Pardon me. We will need to continue our exploration of the dark, continue our exploration of the abyss, finish the quest line of Artorias, now that we have his ring. And then we just have the final 4 Kings boss left before we face Gwyn. Alright. Thank you so much for bearing with me here through all the difficulty. I will wave at you. There we go. I will wave at you. And in the darkness of Anor Londo, I will give you one grateful hurrah. There it is. Thank you so very much, and I will see you again next time for more lore rambles and Dark Souls. Thank you for bearing with me. Bye for now.